They were the picture of suburban bliss, a perfect couple in a perfect home. James and Claire Bennett seemed to have it all: a beautiful house in a serene neighborhood of Chicago, successful careers, and a love story straight out of a romance novel. But one fateful evening shattered that illusion, leading to a shocking revelation 5 years later. A tragedy that seemed like an accident would soon unravel into a tale of greed, betrayal, and cold-blooded murder. How does a marriage built on trust unravel so tragically? What dark secrets lie hidden beneath the surface of a seemingly perfect life? Was it all an elaborate facade, or did love turn into something far more sinister? As we peel back the layers of this chilling story, one question lingers. How well do we really know the people closest to us? Before we dive into this shocking case, hit the like button and subscribe for more gripping true crime stories that delve into the darkest corners of human nature. From love gone wrong to secrets that destroy, these are the tales that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Claire Bennett was the kind of woman who turned heads wherever she went. With her radiant smile, impeccable style, and effortless charm, she seemed like the embodiment of grace. Her neighbors often gushed about her kindness and how she always had time for a chat or a helping hand. Whether it was organizing bake sales or hosting lavish dinner parties, Claire's touch made everything she did feel special. James Bennett, on the other hand, was the rock of their relationship. A brilliant architect with a reputation for designing some of the most stunning homes in the state, James was admired not just for his talent but for his humility. He was the kind of man who remembered everyone's name, from the janitor at his office to the barista at his favorite coffee shop. Together, they were the Bennetts, a couple that seemed to have stepped straight out of a Hallmark movie. Their love story began in college, where James's quiet determination won over Claire's vibrant personality. They were the quintessential opposites who balanced each other perfectly. Friends described them as inseparable, their bond only growing stronger with time. When they married, it was the event of the season, a fairy tale wedding in a sprawling vineyard, attended by everyone who was anyone in their social circle. To the outside world, the Bennetts were the epitome of the American dream. Their home, a pristine 2-story house with a white picket fence, became the heart of their community. They were known for their extravagant 4th of July barbecues and Christmas parties that felt like something out of a movie. But it wasn't just their social life that drew admiration. Claire and James were also deeply involved in charitable work. Claire volunteered at the local shelter, often spearheading fundraisers, while James used his architectural skills to design affordable housing for low-income families. Together, they were a power couple with hearts of gold. Yet beneath the glossy surface, there were whispers. Some neighbors noticed how Claire's smile sometimes didn't quite reach her eyes, or how James seemed unusually tense during their last Christmas party. But in a community as close-knit as theirs, dismissing such observations as mere overthinking was easy. After all, the Bennetts were perfect, weren't they? Bennett. Little did anyone know that the cracks in their picture-perfect lives were about to become gaping chasms, revealing a darkness no one could have imagined. It was an ordinary autumn evening when James Bennett laced up his running shoes and set out for his usual jog. The sun was setting, casting an amber glow over the neighborhood as he waved to a few neighbors on his way out. James was a creature of habit, often running the same route that led him to a nearby hiking trail, a path he loved for its serene beauty and the sense of peace it brought him. But that evening, James didn't come home. Hours passed and Claire began to worry. She called his phone repeatedly, but there was no answer. Panic set in as the night grew darker. By midnight, Claire reported him missing to the police. A search party was quickly organized, and it wasn't long before James's body was discovered at the base of a steep incline on the hiking trail. His lifeless form lay crumpled, surrounded by jagged rocks and broken branches. The coroner ruled the cause of death as an accidental fall. According to the report, James had likely slipped while navigating the trail's uneven terrain, striking his head on the way down. It was a plausible explanation. James had been known to push himself during his runs, even on challenging paths. To everyone who knew him, it seemed like a tragic accident, a cruel twist of fate that had claimed a beloved man far too soon. The police conducted a thorough investigation, but there were no signs of foul play. No suspicious footprints, no defensive wounds, and no evidence to suggest anything other than a misstep in the fading light of dusk. The case was closed quickly, leaving Claire to grapple with her grief. At James's funeral, Claire's emotional display cemented her image as a heartbroken widow. Dressed in a somber black dress, her face pale and tear-streaked, she clung to friends and family for support. Her trembling voice cracked as she delivered a eulogy that painted James as the love of her life, her soulmate, and her anchor in an often chaotic world. The community rallied around her, offering meals, condolences, and unwavering support. Claire's home became a revolving door of visitors, all eager to help her through the darkest period of her life. To the outside world, she was the epitome of resilience, a woman who had lost everything but managed to hold her head high. Yet, even as Claire mourned publicly, there were subtle inconsistencies that went unnoticed. A neighbor recalled seeing Claire arguing with James on their front porch just days before his death. Another mentioned how Claire seemed oddly composed during the initial search, even joking with an officer about how James was probably off exploring some new trail. But these observations were dismissed as the ramblings of people desperate to make sense of an unthinkable tragedy. For 5 years, James's death remained a closed chapter, a sad but unremarkable accident. But the truth, as it would later be revealed, was far more sinister than anyone could have imagined. In the years following James's death, life in the Bennett household took an unexpected turn. Claire, once the grieving widow who had captured the community's sympathy, began to display behavior that raised eyebrows. Neighbors whispered about her sudden change in demeanor. The once poised and composed Claire now seemed more aloof, often spotted laughing and chatting animatedly with a man who wasn't from the neighborhood. He was tall, well-dressed, and always arrived in a sleek black car that stood out in their modest suburban streets. "Who is he?" neighbors wondered. Claire dismissed questions with vague answers, calling him a friend helping with finances. But the nature of their interactions suggested something far more intimate. They were seen dining at upscale restaurants, shopping for luxury items, and, on one occasion, sharing a fleeting kiss in the driveway. The whispers turned into full-blown gossip. Was Claire moving on too quickly, or had she already moved on before James's death? Meanwhile, James's financial records surfaced during a routine audit, raising even more questions. The accounts showed unexplained withdrawals and transfers to a private account under Claire's name. The amounts were significant, enough to suggest premeditated planning. Friends of James's family began to connect the dots, their unease growing with each revelation. Detective Ellen Carter had a reputation for solving the unsolvable. Known for her meticulous attention to detail and unyielding determination, she had recently been assigned to review cold cases in the county. When James's file landed on her desk, she initially thought it was an open and shut case, but as she combed through the reports, something didn't sit right. Why had James chosen a trail he rarely used? His usual jogging route was well-lit and frequented by other runners. The trail where he died was isolated, uneven, and far from his regular path. Ellen's curiosity deepened when she noticed discrepancies in Claire's statements. In one interview, Claire mentioned James's love for that trail, yet his friends claimed he avoided it because of its difficulty. Ellen began piecing together a timeline, focusing on the days leading up to James's death. Witness accounts painted a picture of a marriage under strain. Arguments on the porch, financial stress, and Claire's increasingly secretive behavior all pointed to a deeper story. Ellen's instincts told her this wasn't just a tragic accident. She decided to dig deeper, determined to uncover the truth. What Ellen would uncover next would shock the entire community and expose the chilling truth behind James's mysterious death. As Detective Ellen Carter delved deeper into James Bennett's case, she stumbled upon a trail of digital breadcrumbs that unraveled Claire's carefully constructed facade. It began with a series of encrypted emails found on an old laptop James had used for work. These emails, exchanged between Claire and a man named Mark Reynolds, were the key to unlocking the hidden truth. Mark was no stranger to Claire's life. He was the mysterious man neighbors had seen her with, a man she had described as merely a friend. But the emails told a different story. They revealed an illicit affair that had been ongoing for nearly a year before James's death. The messages were filled with passionate declarations of love, plans for a future together, and, most disturbingly, discussions about James's substantial life insurance policy. One email stood out to Ellen. "We can't keep living like this, Mark. I can't keep pretending. Once the policy clears, we'll finally have the life we deserve. No more hiding, no more secrets." The life insurance policy was worth over $1.5 million, a fortune that would allow Claire and Mark to escape their suburban lives and start anew. Ellen's blood ran cold as she read the words, the motive becoming chillingly clear. This wasn't a case of grief or a widow moving on too quickly. This was premeditated murder. Forensic evidence soon added weight to the theory. James's climbing harness, found at the scene of his accidental fall, was re-examined. Under closer scrutiny, investigators discovered deliberate cuts in the webbing, cuts that weakened the harness just enough to ensure it would fail under pressure. The accident had been staged with precision, a calculated act designed to look like a tragic misstep. The evidence against Claire and Mark began to pile up, and Ellen knew it was time to confront Mark. The man, who had no criminal record and a reputation as a mild-mannered accountant, was visibly shaken when detectives arrived at his door. At first he denied any involvement, but Ellen's relentless questioning and the mounting evidence broke him. In a tearful confession, Mark admitted to his role in James's murder. He described how Claire had approached him with the plan, painting James as an abusive and controlling husband who stood in the way of their happiness. Mark, blinded by his love for Claire, agreed to help. According to Mark, Claire had meticulously orchestrated every detail. She insisted James take the less-traveled hiking trail that evening, claiming it would be a romantic surprise for him to find her waiting at the summit with a picnic. Instead, she tampered with his climbing gear before he left, ensuring it would fail if he attempted to scale the steep incline. "I didn't think it would actually happen," Mark sobbed during his confession. "She said it was the only way for us to be together. But I didn't realize how far she'd go. I thought she'd back out. I thought—" He trailed off, his voice breaking as the weight of his actions sank in. Mark's confession painted Claire as the mastermind behind the murder, a woman driven by greed and the desire for a new life. But it also exposed his own culpability, his willingness to aid in the cold-blooded killing of an innocent man. When news of Claire's affair and the plot to kill James broke, the community was thrown into turmoil. The same neighbors who had once admired Claire now recoiled in horror. How could the woman who had charmed them at barbecues and fundraisers be capable of such a heinous act? Social media erupted with outrage, with hashtags like "Justice for James" and "Claire the Killer" trending nationwide. The Bennett story became a cautionary tale, a grim reminder of how easily appearances can deceive. As Claire was arrested and led away in handcuffs, the perfect image she had cultivated for years shattered completely. The cameras captured her cold, defiant stare, an expression that sent chills down the spines of everyone watching. But for Detective Ellen Carter, this was only the beginning. She knew that the road to justice would be long and grueling, but she was determined to see it through. James Bennett deserved nothing less. It was a warm summer afternoon when the tranquility of the Bennett neighborhood was shattered. Claire Bennett, dressed in an elegant floral sundress, was hosting one of her famed garden parties. The air was filled with laughter, the clinking of glasses, and the aroma of freshly baked pastries. Guests mingled beneath strings of fairy lights, unaware that their gracious hostess was moments away from facing the consequences of her darkest secrets. Detective Ellen Carter and a team of officers approached the Bennett residence with quiet determination. They had chosen this moment deliberately, public, visible, and impossible for Claire to evade. As they walked through the wrought iron gate into the lush garden, the chatter died down. All eyes turned toward the uninvited guests in uniform. "Claire Bennett," Ellen said, her voice steady but commanding. "You are under arrest for the murder of James Bennett." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Claire, who had been pouring champagne into a guest's glass, froze. For a split second her mask of composure faltered. Her eyes darted around the garden, searching for an escape. But there was none. "This is a mistake," Claire said, her voice trembling but defiant. "You can't possibly believe I had anything to do with James's death." As the officers moved closer, she began to plead, her voice rising in pitch. "I loved my husband. This is absurd. Someone tell them this is absurd." But the evidence was undeniable, and the handcuffs clicked into place. As Claire was led away, her once adoring neighbors stared in stunned silence. The whispers started almost immediately. "Did you hear about the life insurance policy? Mark Reynolds, he was here last week, wasn't he? He seemed so normal." The perfect life Claire had so carefully curated crumbled in an instant, leaving behind only shock and betrayal. Claire's trial became a media sensation, with news outlets dubbing her the Black Widow of suburbia. Reporters camped outside the courthouse, eager to capture every twist and turn of the case. True crime enthusiasts dissected the details online, turning Claire's story into a grim form of entertainment. Inside the courtroom, Claire maintained her innocence with the poise of a seasoned actress. Dressed in conservative outfits and with her hair neatly pulled back, she played the part of a wrongfully accused widow. Her defense team argued that the evidence was circumstantial and that Mark Reynolds, who had confessed to his role in the crime, was lying to save himself. But the prosecution dismantled her narrative piece by piece. When Mark Reynolds took the stand, the courtroom fell silent. Pale and visibly shaken, he recounted the details of their affair and the plan to murder James. "She told me it was the only way," Mark said, his voice barely above a whisper. "She said James was controlling, that he would never let her leave, and that we could finally be free if he was gone." Mark's testimony was punctuated by sobs, but the prosecution pressed him for details. He described how Claire had meticulously planned the accident, from tampering with James's climbing harness to crafting an alibi for herself. "She knew exactly what she was doing," Mark admitted, "and I was too blinded by her to stop it." The forensic evidence was the final nail in Claire's coffin. Experts testified about the deliberate cuts in James's climbing harness, the financial transactions that suggested premeditation, and the emails that revealed her motive. One chilling piece of evidence was a journal entry found in Claire's desk. In it, she wrote, "Freedom comes at a price, but it's worth it. He doesn't deserve me. He never did." The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. When they returned, the foreperson stood and delivered the verdict: guilty of first-degree murder. A collective gasp echoed through the courtroom. Claire sat motionless, her face a mask of shock and disbelief. When the judge sentenced her to life in prison without the possibility of parole, she finally broke down, sobbing into her hands. Outside the courthouse, a crowd had gathered to hear the verdict. Cheers erupted as news of Claire's conviction spread. For James's family and friends, there was a bittersweet sense of justice. They would never get James back, but at least his killer would pay for her crimes. Claire's story became a cautionary tale, a stark reminder of how greed and deceit can destroy lives. As she was escorted out of the courtroom in handcuffs, the cameras captured her one last time. Her face, once the picture of charm and composure, was now a portrait of defeat. For Detective Ellen Carter, the case was a testament to the importance of persistence and intuition. "Justice isn't always swift," she told reporters, "but it's worth the wait." And so, the tale of Claire Bennett came to an end, not as the perfect wife and grieving widow she had pretended to be, but as a cold-blooded murderer who underestimated the power of truth. This case reminds us of a haunting truth. Even the most idyllic lives can hide the darkest secrets. Claire Bennett and James appeared to have it all: a love story envied by many, a life of luxury and admiration. But beneath the surface lay a web of deceit, greed, and betrayal that unraveled with devastating consequences. Claire's fall from grace is a chilling example of how unchecked ambition and selfish desires can lead to unimaginable acts. It's a reminder that appearances can be deceiving and that trust, once broken, can have catastrophic repercussions. James Bennett's tragic death was not just the loss of a beloved husband and community pillar. It was a stark lesson about the fragility of human relationships and the lengths some will go to for their own gain. What do you think drove Claire to commit such a heinous act? Was it purely greed, or did something deeper fuel her actions? And perhaps most importantly, could justice have been served sooner if the initial investigation had been more thorough? Share your thoughts in the comments, we'd love to hear your perspective. If this story kept you on the edge of your seat, don't forget to like and subscribe for more true crime tales that delve into the shocking truths behind seemingly perfect lives. From love turned deadly to secrets that destroy, we'll continue bringing you the stories that reveal the darkest corners of human nature. Thanks for watching, and until next time, stay safe and stay vigilant.